Okay, and I should be able to.
And now you are host.
Now I am host. Woot woot. Okay. And we are going to share screen 2. And Jackie, let me know when you can see my screen.
I can see it.
Awesome. Woot, 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 woot. Now, this document, Practical Sigilization, is available to you and via the Google Drive link. Have you availed yourself of that yet?
The link that you sent last week or the first week, that one I have.
Awesome. If you would go ahead and utilize it, please, today. If you need me to text it to you in this context, I can.
Yeah, if you could.
All
It
right.
won't let me shrink the screen down unless I close this out completely.
All right, very good. So I'm going to activate the, let's see, there should be up here. I'll wait to see the chat. Come back here, you little thing, you. There it is. Okay, very good. So there's the chat window. And to you. There you go. Did you get it?
Yeah. For some reason though, it won't let me keep it up unless I have the chat. That's all.
You should be able to go to
I'm
this
still working off my
icon.
hotspot here.
Sure. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, there is a chat icon. You may need to click the chat icon to be able to see additionally the screen and the chat window.
Yeah, it's let me pull it up a little bit, but not a lot, just because of my having to work off the hotspot.
So you're saying your web browser is sluggish?
Yeah, very sluggish.
Okay, all right, then don't worry about it. We'll just use the shared screen. And if you need me to go back, I need you to interrupt me and say go back.
Okay, will do.
All right. So we've already done our awesome little starting close to home. We're moving into inside complexity systems of 10. So what do I mean by systems of 10? There is an awesome, when you're not trying to also stream a video feed, and you can pull up this document, please pull up this document.
Okay.
At the bottom, as you can see, are some suggested reading.
Right.
This right here, The Magician's Companion, a practical encyclopedic guide to magic and religious symbolism by Bill Wickham, is magnificent and gives you kind of your initial get your toes wet in the idea that from a magician's or a witch's perspective, a magical user's perspective, you can pick a system of convenience that makes sense for both your worldview and the situation you're doing magic around. Part of that is what we're going to be tapping today, Jackie.
Okay.
And in every other class. This class is a class built around the idea of if you could chunk the universe into parts of 10. so that 10 would constitute the entire universe. What would those 10 aspects be?
Wow.
Right. So put that in your hat, let that kind of brew around for a little bit, right? And we're going to walk that tree. We're going to walk the 10 points of the Kabbalistic tree of life, which does exactly that. It divides the world into equal parts of 10. And in that way, you're able to you're able to get both macro and micro. You're able to look at the entire scheme of the situation you're working in, the universe, all things seen and unseen. And it also applies to self. So part of what I talk about when it comes to a system of 10 is self-reflection, observation, and we're going to be working specifically with the possibility that you can hang whole mental structures onto a very simple drawn frame. In this case, 10. So I'm going to be talking and walking us through. I don't think we're going to highly suggested reading all 3 volumes of The Invisible Grant Morrison. So, and you can use the link here to actually get to it. Also, Promethea of Alan Moore. Both of those are graphic novels.
Okay.
So that you can breeze through them. They're super easy, and they give everyone a view of the Kabbalistic tree of life, catered to the everyman approach, graphic novel, without doing violence to the base concepts, and still providing a beautiful, engaging story that is super fun with superheroes, with magicians and ghosts and gods, and they're amazing. Absolutely amazing. So well worth it. Promethea is great. The Invisibles, fantastic. There's also a sequel to The Invisibles, all Grant Morrison, which, if you don't know him as a graphic novelist, has written many graphic novels around this idea of how do we use magic in the contemporary world and still be contemporary people. It's awesome. So how I'm going to kind of approach this is, let me get, okay, I think I opened this in a separate process. I did. Okay. I'm going to walk us up the tree of life and talk about each of the houses. And what I would love for you to do, Jackie, is wrap your head around this. You're going to draw a sigil with 10 lines. Okay. So know that at some point, you're going to take your pad and you're going to put 10 lines on it. What I would like you to do is take a few moments now to focus on sort of intent. What do you want to remember? What do you want to manifest? What direction do you want to go with the magic you're going to be doing with this class? Because you have to take this sigil home and cast it 3 times. So it has to be your magic. Okay. So let's take a few minutes now. And what I would love for you to do is just at the top of your page, as simply and clearly as possible. Nothing like world peace. Nothing like a better Supreme Court. Nothing like, no. Convict Trump? Sure, absolutely. Right? That is specific. It's timely, right? But pick something from your own life, right? Now, we're in the heart of complexity. So really cast about in your own life for those complexities you would like to tease out and unravel.
Ooh, that's tricky.
Yes, that's tricky. So if you need to brainstorm first, take 2 minutes, 7:45. By 7:47, we'll go ahead and start walking up the tree. So right now, take those 2 minutes to jot down ideas about what you want your intent to be. Okay. When you feel, and only when you feel that you have kind of a grip on what you want your intention to be, I want you to vocalize the word yes.
Okay. I think I do. And it's actually interesting because I had taken that class earlier with Danielle. And it helped me to realize some things about myself and where I was feeling with my own personal growth and the growth of my gift.
Good.
And so, I mean, I did come up with a couple of them, but I'm not exactly 100% sure just because I'm very still new at a lot of the things. And I shouldn't say new because as I found out today, it's always been in me. I've just never believed in myself enough to allow myself to shine and continue to shine for others to see.
Got it.
Um,
Understood.
so one of the things was to trust in myself, to trust in my gift, trust that I'm special, or trust that I will find that love, that peace, that happiness, and to be able to shine a light more for others.
All of those are awesome. All of that is super awesome. What I would love to also kind of enjoin you to do,
Okay.
right, is that's a huge framework that
Right.
you're working with right there, right? Absolutely, absolutely huge. So what I would love you to do is try and bring it down to the level of within this year, I would like to see this be a truth in my life. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Can you do that?
Yes. So in
Awesome.
this year, I would like to see my ability to trust in my gift.
Awesome. Okay. Now we're dealing with complexity here in this particular class.
Okay.
Right. So for this particular class, what I would like, all of those interconnectednesses you mentioned, like with my ability and with trusting myself and right. What I would love for you to do is just kind of think, like jot down additional words that are nouns or verbs, just nouns or verbs around this sentence that are like the skills or the manifestations that you would observe were this already true.
Okay.
And vocalize the word yes. When you have about half a dozen to a dozen of those.
Ooh, that's tricky.
Yeah, it is. It's mind mapping.
It is.
Yeah. And it really helps you like see from all aspects and sides what you're actually trying to manifest. If you use nouns and verbs and look at it from the perspective of already manifest. What is my life going to look like from there looking back? This includes all of the things that are in your way. We'll deal with those in the class where we deal with 5. So know that you can know that that's in the back of your mind. That's not the work we're doing now. The work we're doing right now is the big Tamalian picture.
It's like I have that, I don't want to say writer's block, but I can see the words. I just can't get them out.
Do you mean that like you've
'Cause
lost?
I've come up with vibrance,
Good.
happiness,
Okay.
light,
Yep.
success,
Okay.
peace,
Good.
change,
Awesome.
and that's where I get stuck.
How about pay? How about readings? How about demonstrations of psychic ability? How about, see where I'm going?
Yes.
Yes. Try and get there. Take a few more minutes.
Growth.
Good.
Future. Okay, so I got growth, teacher, student, believer.
Good. Awesome. No, those are good. So that's, you've got a great start there. Keep going with that. Having a teacher, being a student, and being a teacher, having a student, right? So
Yes.
you're yeah, that's right. I'm picking up what you're putting down, girl. So this is good. This is a good map. As we walk up the tree, here's what I would like you to do.
Okay.
So I'm going to be talking, showing pictures, right? During that process, if you get triggered into hearing more words, nouns or verbs, jot them down.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we're going to take a look at the sigil, the graphic that represents the Kabbalistic tree of life. Now, I'm using a lot of words. Tree of life is pretty straightforward. Kabbalistic, not so much. Kabbalah is a Jewish mystical system of teaching, of gaining enlightenment, of understanding the nature of the ineffable, not understandable. But you can kind of get a toehold on the nature of the ineffable. And that's really where Jewish mysticism went, was, okay, if God is ineffable, and she is, then maybe we can start understanding aspects from our perspective as manifest beings of the ineffable. What are the qualities that the ineffable possesses? Those we can actually define and are very well defined to their belief in, at the time, their scriptures, their highest sacred text, the beginning with the Pentateuch and moving all the way through, right? So the Talmud and the Pentateuch and all of the other, the Dead Sea Scrolls and the this and that, all of the accumula that has been classed by Jewish religious leaders as important, valid, inspired text, which changes all the time because they're always arguing about it. Well, what about this? What about this? What about Ezekiel? What about this? What about this? He says this. She says that. They say this. Argue. It's awesome. They're still philosophizing their religion, and so should we all. So should you. And the first thing that they found to be true about the ineffable, let's see, I want to deal with not my system. I want to deal with the classic. That's tarot. I want to deal with the Jewish names. Yes. So the first bit of the ineffable that they could deal with was the manifest. And they could talk all kinds of ways about the nature of the manifest as not outside of the divine. Okay, Jackie, did you catch that?
Yes.
Good. Every religion has two sides. Every one. One that's typically either faith or belief based and is rules driven. And always they generate a fuck ton of dogma and rules. And then there's the other side of the equation. And usually when an organized religion gets big enough, they go on a campaign or pogrom to kill all these people. They're the mystics. And they typically go through a period where they expunge all of these texts from their sacred writ. And the mystics always are like, fuck your dharma, plug your dogma, and fuck your dharma, and fuck all that. Plug into God. Just plug in. You already are God. All you got to do is forget your ego. And guess what floods in? Divine awareness. This is the mystical side of the house. So every impulse, every movement to free people from the dogma of a scripturized writ and hand the keys to the individual, like witchcraft, of an ability to plug directly into the divine, is mystic by nature. And there are aspects of any mystical religion that you can teach, the outward forms, or the exoteric, is what it looks like it's spelled. It's pronounced exoteric. If you use these techniques, you will get the esoteric internal realization and connection with the divine. Now, it begins with an interrogation of the manifest, the world, the 10-pointed star in the center. They call this the 10th house, right? And it is every color. Because the manifest is every color. It's every direction. It's every style of thinking. Sometimes it works in harmony. Sometimes it has chaos. The 10th house is called Malkut. And I used to have, it's just killing me that I don't have, well, I do. Some of them I put on here. I put ox, house, camel, door. Malkut may mean earth. I will get back to you on this.
Okay.
Malkut may in fact mean just dirt. It also, here's the fun part with, you know, the Jewish people were awesome. They wanted a unified string theory for religion. And their mysticism, if it was accurate, they felt should be like a unified grand theory, right? So, of course, if you look at the 10 spheres, Sephiro, and all of the paths between them, 32 of them, each of these paths corresponded with a letter in their alphabet. The letter itself had a name. The name itself had a meaning. Things like tooth, ox, house. So on every level, meaning gets amplified and colored by the lenses of meaning that it has to filter through. Just like light from the Godhead, Kether, diffuses downward through from pure absolute beingness through duality, triplicity, quadruplicity, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. From the sacred wheel of outer space to light and darkness, dueling it out, to the great mother who accounts for all things, to the great creative father who is the impulse to inseminate, the impulse to create, the impulse to divide oneself into the will and drive to discern and separate, so that identity can arise and emotion, guided by intellect and dream, all the way down to the manifest. So I just shared with you a bunch that's walking down the tree. Now, walking down the tree, that's how God moves. She starts in the Emperine, and her aspects trickle down into more and more granularity and specificity until you get to the very specific, your situation, you, the cells in your body, the thoughts in your head, the desires moving through you, your job and your money, your social networks, your responsibilities and expectations, your actions and their consequences. So the wheels meet the road here at Malkut in the actual universe. Jackie, I'm going to ask you, can you change yesterday?
No.
Can
Technically, I can.
can you manipulate tomorrow?
I can't manipulate it, but I can change the outcome of certain
Your
things.
preparedness for it.
Yeah.
Where can you make that difference?
At the start of my morning.
Actually, it's in this moment,
Okay.
right?
Technically, yeah.
You started this morning and you came up with a checklist and plans. That's just a technique. The only place you can make any difference at all in everything in the universe is right here, right now. In this situation with these people. The closest you will ever get to God are the people you meet every day. The closest you'll ever get to a demon, Satan, the unholy, unclean is the people you meet every day. No god or goddess knows anything about this, our world, that they do not find out through our eyes, nose, mouth, ears, nor perform through our hands. Because there are basically a couple of forces at work, right? There's geology and time, and that's it. And then there's life, us, which includes our manifest form and things like a checklist when you wake up in the morning to help you prepare for tomorrow, which is an awesome spiritual approach. Good job, Jackie.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, our subtle force, just like with Kundalini, is always trying to rise towards her. At the same time, she's trying to descend towards us.
Like a prism.
That's right. Because may the gods preserve the craft, and may the craft preserve the gods. We are in a mutual and symbiotic relationship with the divine. The first and most base assumption that we're making in this system is that we are interpenetrated with and contiguous to the divine. And the only difference between us and the divine is the granularity and specificity of Malkut, our manifest nature. Cool. I'm going to let that roll around in your head. Hopefully you have a couple of words.
I did. I added some more words.
Good. Awesome.
I added balance, strength, wisdom, kaleidoscope.
Love it. Awesome. This is getting really cool. So we always think of Malkut as the earthly realm. We're going to dive from the earthly into the lunar realm of Yesod. And Yesod, yes, the Jewish letter. Oh, no, that's right. Each of those corresponds to a path. So let's go up the 32nd path. Let's just play with that. And we're going to climb up the cross, the road of imagination, right? Which it is. Imagination, dream, poetry, the rending of worlds. Always there's a seed or a base of truth, but somehow now, on the 700 stair, when you step down off of it onto a new landscape, you can shake the hand of yourself and walk forward as a dual, as a wraith being, as a fey being, as a shapeshifter, as a whole planet. This is the realm of science fiction, fantasy, folklore, history, histrionics, politics, art, play, and all of the discoveries that occur in all of those, as well as all of the deceptions, miscalculations, mazes that lead nowhere, frustrations, blocks, problems. How many times have you worked out a problem in your dreams?
On a nightly basis.
Very good. Then you understand the nature of the lunar realm,
Yes.
of Yesod, and what Yesod, the nine-pointed star, teaches us. She teaches us to be open, playful, exploratory, and not fearful.
I
Fear
love these pictures. I'm sorry. I love these pictures. These for me, when I see them, I think of the stars and how they explode and create that beautiful light show.
Awesome.
It's like a kaleidoscope. Yeah.
Awesome. Keep going with that. Keep playing in there. Keep moving around in that realm of dream where you can meet all of your ancestors, where you can sit at a table with Sartre or with Aleister Crowley or with Madame Laveau and have a conversation, where you can meet, Betty Grable, or go further back. Let's talk to things that never existed. Let's talk to Nessie, Loch Ness. Let's talk to the worm coiled upon itself at the center of the earth that is made of molten magma, and that at Ragnarok will be unleashed from his prison to flow over the surface of the planet. And just sit and have a talk like we would with any worm or dragon. And these lead to the realm of thought, to Hod, the house of all intellect, where fractal upon fractal upon fractal upon fractal of mathematic realities play themselves out in the intricacies of a manifest world.
See, this one looks dangerous. It looks very like it's chaotic.
And yet, it is a repetition of an 8-pointed star.
Yeah.
Over and over and over on every scale, the exact same pattern. I love that you find it dangerous. The mind, when unhinged from all of the other houses, is dangerous. In my tradition, the way we put it is, and we think of it as the rising power of God, is held under her loving hand to restrain him, lest he destroy himself and the world.
Yeah, because I think if you're allowed to let your mind completely be free of everything that you think is a total existence, your mind would be overtaking of what we think is the normal world.
Yeah, this is the, did you ever see the The Baron von Munchausen, the movie.
No.
Oh God! Oh, it's so good. Put it on your list. The King of the Moon. It's the King of the Moon. You're talking about the King of the Moon. It completely. When you unhinge your mind and allow it to like do, yes, it will undo and destroy everything, which is part of the creative process. You know, you don't make a table because you kept the tree intact. You don't. And the mind, thought, ideation is what creates the schema, the perfect, the platonic solid, the idea that I can plane the wood and it would be flat, and I can add these things called legs and it'll stand straight, and I can put a vase on it and I can put it against a white backdrop. And sure enough, all those things can be manifest in other realms, but first here in mind. And beyond that, beyond mind and mind's twin sister, emotion.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny, it's in blue. I'm a water sign, so the first thing I see is a pool. And
Pool, an
uh,
ocean,
yeah,
a depth, surface and reflection.
yeah. It's the reflection is amazing.
Currents and movement, swells and lapping. The most docile when still, the most destructive.
When at full force.
And what does water do?
Water is calm, but water is very destructive if given the space to be that way.
All of the bulwark and frame of our living earth was generated by rain dissolving mountains, ice carving ravines, rivers distributing life. Our emotions are the same way. They allow us to take the ideation, to take the imagination to different parts of self, capital S and lower s. So both ego identified self and quantum self that includes the divine and the voice of the divine. Emotion redistributes all of these through the framework. Water travels everywhere, and all water communicates with all other water. We are 98% water. The moon herself in the lunar realm is forever pulling and tugging, and the mind is trying to contain and build a pool that will hold the ferocious power of the depth, which geysers into a pillar touching the sky. These are our emotions, and the one source of all emotion, love. And rising up through even that, where all of the meat is something entirely other. I can't just say self. I can't just say I. I can't just say ideation. I can't say identity. Because all of these are too small a metaphor to contain the truth of this grand and perfect knowingness. When we look at its position, Tifret's position on the tree, we see that all of the energies of all other houses move into and through it. And it is the one coordinating factor. there's always a person in the family, right? And when they die, the family breaks up.
Mhm.
There's always a person in the office. And when they quit their job, there's always an exodus. There's always a charismatic leader at the center. And when they get shot because the FBI finally comes in, the rest of the church crumbles. There's always at the center one grand knowingness that overturns the temples, tables for exchanging money, and resets the valuation of the divine. There's always a gut feeling that knows. That's mom on the phone. And you pick up the phone and it's your mother. This is Tiferet. Feeding, not always necessarily directing or guiding, just
Embracing.
balancing, providing an antidote when there is an excess.
So would you consider that to be like a gut of the whole entire?
Yeah. So if we look at like body being down here, we're looking at like the imaginatory core here. This really would be the core of that part of you which just knows, is certain. And it has nothing to do with your mind. It never does. It's always like I love in the Neo story of the Matrix movies, when he's in the interview with the Oracle in the first movie, she says, being the one is like being in love. You just know it. Balls to bones, ovaries to bones. It's that knowingness, which really is quantum global, but we always talk about it as a gut knowing, right?
Mhm.
Yep, absolutely. Now, from many other perspectives, many other mystical perspectives, I think technically they would probably place this not so much solar plexus, but more heart chakra.
Right.
But really heart chakra more intelligent than just being compassionate and sensitive, but from like an energetic perspective. You know that the electromagnetic pulse issued by the heart actually is one of the most complex sine waves we can observe in the universe. If you didn't know that, research it. It's insane. The electromagnetic field of the heart is stupidly gorgeous. Here, let me show you. And it turns like all different ways. And it has shells, and the closer in shells are even more complicated. There.
It's like an aura around it.
And this is the heart of creation of all that is seen and unseen. That part which knows. And that part which knows flows its energy and its light into that part which discerns and has willpower, which separates and weighs, which says this, not that, which takes 2 portions for me and 2 portions for you.
It looks heavy.
It is heavy. The power of will is also possibly the most dangerous of all of the houses, leading, of course, to tyranny. However, when well applied with the power of compassion, allowing Tiferet to do the knowing, allowing Geburah and to like do its best work with Netzach present. So there is flow for the situation, there is give, there is not an unyielding and unbreakable thing that you yourself must break yourself on. No. It's a sword, it's a weapon. It's the defense of freedom. The defense of power. When you get confused about power, remember love. And that's the message of Geburah.
I definitely think people get confused with power and thinking that it's love.
And they wind
Allowable.
and they wind up in the shadow side of Geburah, which is called Din. Din was like one of the inner cities, very similar to Pandemonia, I think, for he wrote the Divine Comedy, Dante. However, your list in your morning, what does it take to stick to the list?
It takes a lot of willpower.
To show up to your workout, to
Do the things I
call
need
the
to do.
that's right, to call the friend who's having a problem, and you have to have the complicated situation and say, honey, you made your own problem. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. To help out your kid when they're resistant, if you have kids.
I do.
How about your dog if your dog is resistant? Help out your cat if your cat is resistant, right? You have to be the witch in the room to make all things sound. And that takes Geburah. An exercise of sheer will to bend the universe around your little finger.
And you know what? I think that's why it's so like intense in color and intense in weight, because it is such a huge task.
It is. Moving from will, all these energies slide over into the benefactor of the tree of life, the four-pointed star of Kesed, the will and desire to make and to create more complex structure and more structure in the universe.
It seems almost like it's whimsical.
It's Jupiterian, expansive, loving,
Free.
giving, gifting. The power of Kesed in a spell is like frankincense. If you know, you know, and I'm about to share with you. If you want to bump up your spell without altering its flavor, add frankincense. It's the all-purpose zhuzh. It just enhances. It's like salt for food. That.
I've never tried frankincense.
Oh God, honey, try. Just try.
Okay.
Just try. It is pure power. Just power. That's all it is. That's why it was given to Christ at his birth. Frankincense and myrrh. Myrrh for health, dental health. They made toothpaste out of it. And frankincense, the proper food of the gods. So, from this realm of four, we cross the abyss there is always an abyss. There is always a thing to cross. There is always a challenge to overcome. There is always a thing to shed and leave behind. There is always a complexity that complexes us. Plexes with, with, plex. And that's here, where there is no road, where there is no solution, where you don't know how you got here, but you must not stay. And that leads to the mother of all mothers. But before we get to her, I want to take a moment and I want us to think about Ein Sturz und ein Neubauten, the falling apart, just brand new building. I want to think about entropy. I want to think about turbulence. I want to think about all those things that are dissipatory, catabolic as opposed to anabolic. This is the black hole surrounded by the event horizon of light, light trapped by gravity. The strongest force trapped by the weakest force in the universe. How many times are we trapped by our own weakness?
What?
If we don't face this, we will wind up trapped there. Facing it, we can move on to her, Bina. Oh, the All Mother. All Mothers. The All Mother of all mothers, Bina. Amma. The three-pointed star, who must account for and support everything seen and unseen in the universe. When I pray, there's a prayer from my tradition, Holy Mother, in whom we live, move, and have our being. From you all things emerge, and unto you all things return. I'm talking about Bina. And from her, and sitting in her awesome salon and feeling the joy of the moment where you can say, I am a child of the universe and I have a right to be here. We can walk in pride to Kokma, the dual-natured one, the two-pointed star. The twins, the binary star system, the symbiote, the power of light meeting and marrying the darkness. Gravity and the thing gravity works on. Light and the thing illuminated. Everything that is poisonous and each of their antidotes together. And when we can hold both, as Rumi says, the sacred yes and the sacred no in both hands will discover the one truth, the nature of reality, the highest, Kether, the divine, pure light, the 100-petaled lotus, the 100-pointed star.
It looks like one of those tops of the plants that when you're a kid you blow out and the feathers just go everywhere. It's simple. It's simple yet it's so detailed. It's like it's breathtaking.
As Kether is.
It's like you see it and you can visualize it, but yet it's so strong that are you worthy of having it? Are you worthy of being able to embrace it?
Are you worthy of stepping into being it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the corollary question, how could you not be?
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, beyond Kether are the shells. There's also a flip side. They are the cliff off. We're not dealing with those right now. We're dealing with these 10.
So I'm sorry, let me get back to you on this one that's in the middle between the mother and the second, the 2-point star. Yes.
Day off.
How is it that you get from the ocean over here, and I call it the ocean, to the mother, which is the grounding one, without that bridge?
This bridge right here.
Okay.
Okay. So the philosophers who use this system did, they created, this is really if you want to go straight from the knowingness to the Godhead, you would travel the 13th road. And the 13th road, or that of ecstasy, awe, and terror, also called Gimel, which represented the camel, or being of service in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's road of service. That's how you got there. Or you went this way from Tiferet to Geburah and exercised your will. And through that came to an understanding of the details of the universe. And that you could leap off of into an awareness of Godhead. Or you could go from the lunar realm through your emotions, creativity, have a spark that just tears you open to the polarities of the universe, and that itself gave you a vision of the Godhead. There is no set way, Jackie.
So you could technically go from 4 to 3, 3 to 2.
Along the paths, yes. And you can go backwards along the paths. But these are the standard
didn't see
paths.
the line from 4 to 3. That's why I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm
Oh,
missing
I see
something.
what you're saying. From 4, there is not, no. Oh, I love you, honey. There are 2 broken roads. The road from 5 to 2, and the road from 4 to 3. One of them, I actually wrote a treatise about called Iridul, which means sacred whore. And it was the path of using sex as a mystical approach to divine awareness. The other, the king is a beggar, which is shedding completely all of your trappings of ego, money, wealth, possession, name, all of it, and going as a stranger in a strange land in your own world. Those 2 roads were broken by what was called the fall from grace. and allowed Tiferet, originally in the position of Daoth, to fall. What's left, all of the complications, all the problems, all of the emptiness, doubt, fear, shame, guilt, all the landfill emotions, all of it that Daoth represents is a shadow shell of the loss of the knowingness. Is this making sense?
It does. So here's my question. Here's another question. So as a person that is starting out and embracing and learning more about my goddess, if I'm trying to follow that correct path of what I feel I'm supposed to do, and I see, okay, hey, this is 10, this is 9, this is 8, this is 7, 6, where I'm at, 5, okay, 4, but then I want to get closer. And instead of jumping that path and just saying, okay, hey, you know what, I'm just going to hit 4, just 2. I miss that bond with the mother. I miss that bond. And it's like, can't we just create a line from 4 to 3?
Well, what the theorists around this system have said is, let's take the lightning bolt path. And the lightning bolt path goes from Malkuth to Yesod, and then it snakes through the rest: Hod, Netzach, Teferet, Geburah, Kesed, Bina, Kokma, up to Keter. And they portray it as the sword of enlightenment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the lightning bolt, the strike that meets you coming down as you meet it going up. Reinforcing a feedback loop that happens when you finally get the mystic awareness of self in context, which is also divine.
That aha moment.
The aha. Only the aha never stops. It just keeps going.
So my concern would be, let's say I'm following my aha moment. I get to my 6 and I'm feeling that struggle, you know,
Yeah.
in that fifth house of that willpower and that struggle of, okay, is this going to be right by doing it this way and doing it this way? And I'm at 4, but then I get stuck in that muted swap. Like,
well, 4 is the expansive creation that will flow from that, right? Because let's face it. Okay, let's bring it down to real brass tacks. You want to write a novel. So you start with a paragraph and a day, and that's what you're doing. You're going to do a paragraph a day, right?
mm-hmm.
And so that's your exercise of will. What's that going to do? Grow, expand, build, get more and more and more structure is going to come off of that. You want to lose weight. What do? You start working out. You start out small. Every day you add a little bit more. You get stronger, 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 stronger. You build that habit, right? And the habit itself winds up creating in the universe. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Habit creates in the universe. That's the exercise of will and true application. It's not to get lost in any dreamy or muzzy. There is no dreamy muzzy. It's very clear. And that's the whole point of this system. Not to think it or ideate it too much, but to allow it to sink in and be like a mnemonic. Where am I right now? What's going on? Well, my emotions are really a mess because I'm dealing with mom and the C word and blah, 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 and all this other, and my sister is like not helping, and all of the weight's on me. So I have to be Geburah. I have to come in with the power of will, and I have to have all my ducks in a row. There's Hod, and I have to have all the paperwork and the power of attorney and and I have to support her through the chemo, and I have to do this, and right?
Yeah.
That's where the wheels really hit the road. And this helps you understand, what are all these things that I never dealt with mom, Daoth? That's this awful wheel. That's right. All the shit I buried, all the shit she buried, all the unspoken words, all the unrealized atavistic fallen away parts of the universe that never got a chance to live.
All the fear of the unseen.
Oh yes. It's all back there too. And the only way to get past it really is to the mother. Right? And that's the proper place. And then you realize, oh shit, I really need to be in Bina, right? I really need to be mom. I need to just be mom. Mom, what would I do? Mom, what would I do with mom? I'd be a mom. I'd show up, I'd smile, I'd have flowers. Her favorite, if you can. Here's a blanket. Are you hungry?
And you know what's interesting, because for me,
Right.
being that person, being that mom I am, it's like I want to protect everything.
That's Gibora. That's the sword of will. No,
It's
I'm gonna
like
protect you.
I protect everything at that muted cost of my own sanity.
Sacrifice itself is part of Dayab. Now, what's really awesome about the word sacrifice, let's bust it out. Sacred gift. When you put a sacrifice on an altar and you burn it, it becomes perfect and white.
Becomes strong with the strength.
It loses its own individuality and it becomes a part of something much larger.
Yeah.
It gives off life, light, and heat. It transforms, and it transforms anything it touches. Yeah. Sacrifice itself lives in the bulwark of the tree. You're always gifting to make sacred something to move anywhere on this tree. So don't get locked in, am I taking the right steps? Am I doing the right thing? It's like yoga. You know, when they say use your drishti view, fuzzy up your eyes and your focus. See the pattern as opposed to the detail. That's when the tree of life becomes most powerful as a tool. When it's so integrated with yourself that it's automatic. And you know, where am I? Oh, I'm just being emotionally triggered. I am lost in Netzach, buried in the waves. Okay, what do I need to do? I need to balance this out with a little certainty, right? Bring it to Tiferet and bring in some of these other aspects too. What does Mom Bina say? And what does Dad Kokma say? And what does my own God soul Keter say? And what does my intellectual side Had say? And what do I have the physical means to actually do right now? What's in Malkut? And does any of this fit in with my dreams, my hopes, my poetry? Yesod, the dream wear. See how this is? It's like a game of shells.
It's a big puzzle. You just have to know how to fit the pieces in.
Sure, that's a way to view it. Now, what I would like you to do is reread all of your words.
Okay.
Try and make a second statement of your intent that is more specific, that's more of a SMART goal, right? So it's time sensitive, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's something you can like actually build a living plan around, that also is going to take that leap of faith and some miracle pulled out of Uranus and all the rest of it, right? A couple of rainbows and glitter thrown on. Thank God for friends with glitter bombs, right? And make one more statement, including and marrying some of the essence and content that you've been exposed to with the tree of life and the additional nouns and verbs that you added. Maybe you throw the whole thing away and you make another statement. Whatever is right at this moment that you want 3 times to do a spell for. And when you have it written out, say the word yes.
Okay, I think I have it.
Good.
By the end of the year, I would like to succeed in creating the simpleness and trust in my loving gift.
Beautiful. Awesome and perfect intent. Holding that intent in your mind, I want you to commit 10 lines to paper. And the lines should all touch.
Do they have to be vertical, horizontal?
They don't have to be anything. What they should do is raise the hairs on the back of your neck. Think of images and designs that scare you, that terrify you, that intrigue you, that you find beautiful. What is a thing that you've seen that was so compelling that you couldn't keep it out of your mind? And you went back to it again and again and again. And see if you can, with your 10 lines, capture some tiny bit of the essence of what it was about that thing and bring it in. And if you don't know quite how to do that, then just play with lines. Draw them, erase them, draw them again, erase them, move them, change them. Maybe it's not an arc. Maybe it's a straight line. Maybe it's not a straight line. Maybe it's a circle. Maybe it's actually a arrow. Maybe it's not an arrow, but a curve. And come at it. But you have 10 lines to do it. And you can even just keep the intent in the back of your head somewhere. It doesn't need to guide your hand. It already is. And what you heard tonight about the tree of life, it doesn't need to guide your hand. It already is. It's a part of the influence of this moment. It's part of the magic that we're doing, that it includes the complexity of actual and real life. It's just 10 lines. Like these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 lines. Yours can look like whatever you want. That's why one of the things that I include are the brainstormers in the folder. I think it's actually called brainstormers. We're in Tall. Let's go into, when you look at the materials online, let's go back. You will see it's in here, all materials, a folder called brainstormers, and they're all in here. And each of these has like varying kinds of ways to approach a line, to create meaning, and to all of them feel radically different. All of them have their own sense of sort of affect or provenance or place. Each one is different in what it evokes emotionally. Some of them feel complex and beautiful. Some feel dangerous and magical. Some feel odd and not your style. Some of them feel very much like an alphabet. Some of them may feel almost like they're pictograms or stories. This is your 10 lines. Play with them, flow them, move them, erase them, redo them. Redo them again. What speaks to you? I know when I first started along my path, one of the things that spoke to me most deeply was the Theban alphabet. I don't know if you've ever seen the Theban alphabet. It was originally proposed by some of the founders in witchcraft to be like sort of a universal, I think I have the Theban in here, sort of a universal alphabet for witches, which never really took hold because there are 1,000 billion alphabets out there. And though the Theban alphabet is pretty and it makes it complicated for anyone to read your boss if you write your Book of Shadows in Theban, it still is, it's just another alphabet. And there are a million, billion, bajillion other alphabets. But here it is, right here. Full stop. There's like a period. This beautiful, complex sigil here. I love Theban. I did my entire first Book of Shadows written in Theban. Beautiful. It's a beautiful script. And because of that, all things mystical to me tend to kind of, if it's a drawing or sigil, I always tend to bring in like little bits and elements from Theban into the drawing because it's so, it has framed my imagination of the magical so strongly. But it should suit you. Like I said, if you, a sigil drawn correctly would for yourself raise the hairs on the back of your neck, which is where play comes in, right? This is the moment where I ask you to pretend that you're Gretel being trapped by the witch in the gingerbread house. And the gingerbread house is your sigil. How would you decorate the most powerfully transformative and horrifying moment of your life in 10 lines that also captures the hope of your future. It's a lot of weight. It's not meant to be. This should, if you're not having a good time in your spiritual practice, you're doing it wrong. Have a good time with it. Play,
So,
have fun. Go ahead.
I drew something.
Okay, now's the
it's
time
like-
to
It's,
use your camera, young lady.
so it's like, I don't know, it doesn't all connect like in circles and stuff like that, like the tree of life would do. I don't know if you can see it.
All of your line, you can get to every line from every other line.
Right.
Yes, this is dynamite. That is a gorgeous sigil.
And it just,
Gorgeous.
when I see it, it's just something that it makes me think of like the water. And it's flowing and it's just reaching that top point of where the water actually ends, but you know it's not really ending. It's just building and it continues to build.
Good. Good. Good, good, good. So you remember the steps to casting it, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Good. And you know that on the opposite side of your sigil, you should have your 3 areas to journal, right?
Right.
So you're going to cast, like you're not going to cast tonight. Not tonight.
Yeah.
You're going to put that on your altar or away.
Okay.
Tomorrow will be the first day that you cast it. Any time of the day or night, whenever you can have private time to do the casting appropriately. And also, don't rush it. You know, don't rush in, don't rush out. Take your time with your spiritual practice. Allow yourself to fill it and allow it to fill you. Because
So
it's going to.
I've never really like cast any kind of spell or anything like that.
Right.
I do my prayers and I'll put my energy out there, but
Right.
I've never said, hey, let's
Well,
put a spell in a jar or something. I've never done that.
now you are.
Okay.
That's the work we're inaugurating here. So if you have to do any work to be okay with that internally, and I get that. I totally do. I totally understand it. What we say is put it in the kalaka. If you have a complex that's preventing you from the work of this work, put it into, keep it, hold it, but it needs to be transformed so it's not a block.
Okay.
Because that's the work we're doing. So the casting is really simple, right? I'm going to masturbate and Cthulhu is going to have this emblazoned on his chest as he rams me right up my hole.
Okay.
Yeah, until I squirt everywhere and have an awesome orgasm. And then I'm going to cast him and this sigil into the void created by orgasm. And that can be anything. It can be just imagining the sigil. That doesn't work for me. I like to play with playthings. So you could draw it on your dildo. You could put it on your mighty might. You could take, oh, this would be fun. If you took like pegboard and glow sticks and broke on your glow sticks, pegged them to the pegboard in this sigil, turned out the lights and had your time. Whatever it takes, the attention and intention should be building, 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 dump it into the sigil, hand the sigil to the divine. Orgasm is handing the sigil to the divine, because then you let go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lights are already out. So pretty, glowy light, roll over, go to sleep, walk away. And then the next day, journal anything, everything. Nothing happened today. It was so uneventful. I even felt like I was bored half the day and I fell asleep during a meeting with so-and-so. Sure, journal that. Oh my God, there were so many synchronicities. Everywhere was water. There was water here and water there and even broke a sink and blah, 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 blah. Journal it. Right? And then the next day, cast again. You're
And
gonna
when I'm casting it, then I'm saying by the end of the year, I wanted to succeed in creating with simpleness and trust in my loving gift.
in less a way like saying it, more in a way of knowing it. So imagine, if you will, as it
Mhm.
were, standing in that position of already being there and already having achieved it, looking back at today.
Okay.
That's where you want to come at this from. And it doesn't have to be those exact words crafted in that way, but the power and the specificity of the intent should be involved in your casting, because that's what you're handing to her and saying, 1,000 copies, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you feel well prepared?
Mentally, yes. It's like I can envision myself doing this, but it's that little girl in the background of my
Yes.
head that says, "Oh, you're getting yourself into something."
Yeah, into magic.
And I think that is that's the part
A little bit
that's like-
scary.
Yes, yes, because it's like I feel it there. I feel it's like I can feel the
Yes.
energy in it. Just by drawing, I feel the energy in it.
Yeah, and you should. That's the whole point, is when you draw your sigil, you should be able to feel crackling off of the lines, the spiritual force and power that you are dumping into it, which is everything from fear. And I want you to, I would really invite you to have a little sit down discussion with her and let her know, fear is the first emotion you feel when you are about to change.
Yeah, it's most definitely. And I think it's just because one, it's the fear of the unseen,
Yeah.
but it's also the fear of failure.
Yeah.
Because
That's
it's
right.
like, okay,
That's right.
I'm putting all of it into
right.
it.
That's right.
And it's fearful because it's like
It's a
am I
real
going-
wish now. You've really
Yeah.
stated it.
It's
Oh my
not like
God.
it's not on the birthday candle, if I don't
right.
get the pony, I don't get the pony.
That's
you
right.
know.
That's right. That's right. You handed your letter to Santa, and is Santa actually going to bring it?
Yeah.
Yes. And both excitement and fear.
Mhm.
You would do yourself, Jackie, a service when casting it to have all those emotions present while you're casting it. All of them. The fear, the anticipation, the excitement of attainment, all of it. Throw all of it into the sigil. And then just observe. And the observation and integration portion, which is your journaling,
Mhm.
is really where, you've already done the magic. Now you need to understand it.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I put it onto my altar,
Uh-huh.
which in all honesty is probably not as elaborate as some people's in this world. Mine's just a little piece of wood with all my crystals on top of it.
It sounds elegant and simple, just my kind of altar.
Yeah. Do I just lay it there in hopes that it doesn't burn up with my incense going?
Yes, try and keep it away from the incense, but yes, lay it there. When
Okay.
you're not using it, it should be put away where it can be seen in the corner of your eye, but not a conscious focus of your attention. It should be a conscious focus of your attention only during casting.
Okay. So then I can actually keep it in my I don't have to keep it on top of my altar all day long because
You don't
those
have to.
those little hands sometimes come in there. and
Oh,
then-
go yes, the little hands. Yes, try and keep it away from the little hands. Little hands have a tendency to do what little hands do. So
add
yeah,
in that
absolutely.
little pony onto it. I don't
Yes,
need a
that's
pony
right.
by the end of the year.
You really
Okay.
don't. Nobody needs that, right?
No, no.
No.
I've already gotten a cat out of that one, so I don't need a pony.
Yes, that's right. So if you can keep it away from the little hands, do.
Okay. Okay. So let me ask this now, because I was going a little crazy here in this drawing.
You crazy
Um,
woman, you.
I am.
Yes.
If I wanted to put color to it, just so I can have it more vibrant, like I
I
do.
already am.
Okay.
Yes. So this is one of the things that I do. Now, I showed you some of the sigils that I did from the last class, right?
Mhm.
And my process, I have my own intent. I didn't write it down. I had it here. And I kind of used it to help me construct this. And I have a bunch of things that I'm working on. And part of my process now of understanding my own intent is that I'll Photoshop the shit out of this.
Okay.
Yeah. And as I add color, as I add texture, as I run it through filters, as I zhuzh it with the magic wand button, as I do, add these additional flourishes or enhance a line or bring another image in to superimpose or become a background or whatever it is, I'm actually clarifying my own intent.
Okay.
Yeah. And only at the point where I get to a final and vivid, livid, obscene, something that is so present and gorgeous that it captivates me. That's when I know I've hit it right. When it raises the hairs on the back of my neck. Yep. So yes, that it is appropriate to do all of those things. Add color, add design if you want to Photoshop it, if you want to play with it. Do all those things and get it to a place where some of that's practical too. Make it easy for your imagination to latch onto for long periods of time with high attention and still be interesting. You have to get through hopefully a prolonged masturbatory session with it as your focus,
Okay.
right? So it has to be something you enjoy looking at and that is beautiful and intriguing and that draws you in and captivates you and seduces you in the same way that a sex act would.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So whatever it takes for it to be all of those things for you, definitely do that. And that's kind of what my process of, I draw it first, then I photograph it, then I throw it in PixArt and I clean up the lines, and then I throw it in Lightroom and I could vectorify it, and then I start playing with the lines and the color and the tone and the texture and what else is in there and what story does this sigil want to also tell through me.
Now, do you find that you are trying to be a perfectionist when you do this?
Yeah, and so I save often, right? And because I may want to revert to a prior one where, my idiocy, perfectionism pushed something past the point where it no longer is useful, right? So, or I fixated on, wow, I really love this filter right now, and I'm doing everything with this filter, but it really isn't about the filter. It needs to be about the sigil, right? And so I'll go back to previous iterations, and I save often and go through many different scenarios. And if you have done a creative process before, you will have discovered, I'm sure, it's not about how much control you have of the end product. It really is about your attention and intention on the journey to get there. And most of the shit that really is most compelling in a creative process is 100% accidental.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I try and leave room. And here's why. One of the things that I also say about God herself is don't tie her hands with your prayers. You know, if you say it's got to be skinny latte and it has to be handed to me by my coworker named Sue, and I want it by 3 p.m. and it has to be over hot so that it burns me. You're not going to get it. You've tied the hand to the divine.
Yeah, you've asked for too much for something
Far
that
too,
should be.
bingo, far too specific, and it doesn't allow for really her to succeed. And I always think of accidents in this context as ways for her to communicate to me. You know, one of the last sigils that I did for the last round of this class, I didn't notice until I had already added an additional like burn layer, that it had a picture, that it wound up resembling a fetus. And then I started enhancing it, and it made everything. It changed the whole nature of it. And it suddenly became pregnant with possibility. Wow. It was gorgeous. It was a beautiful accident. And then, of course, once I knew that, yes, indeed, that's a valid communication, I started enhancing those elements, bringing them in, pulling them out of the sigil. And the casting got only more powerful. It was really awesome. So allow for your creative process, whatever your creative process is. If it's colored pencils, awesome. Do 15,000 versions of a colored pencil. If you like crayons, if you like Crayolas, if you like colored pens, if you're like me, where you want to take a picture and Photoshop it, if you want to take that Photoshop and print it and then do a collage, if you want to take the collage and scrapbook it, if you want to take the scrapbook and antique it and distress it and put it in a light box and create a light effect. You're seeing where this is going, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever gives you traction and in your casting, follow it. If in fact, you know what I would love to do with this? I would love to have a box, like a box about this big, full of dead flies. And I would love to be able to get them so thick in this line that I can take a picture from a distance and it just looks like a perfect graphic line. But then when you zoom the photo in, you see that it's just dead flies. Ugh. That makes the hairs on the back of my neck raise up.
It's the powerfulness of
Yes.
the art piece.
Yes. And that isn't restricted to artists.
No.
You have that power. I have that power. Everyone has that power.
Art
That's
is
what
always
I'm.
in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that you can come to a place where you say, what is it for me that I could embrace to get that same pow effect?
I can definitely tell you, for me to do that mentally and to have it on the paper and get that
Visceral.
orgasmic, yeah,
Yes.
that moment, it won't happen by tomorrow. I can tell you that.
Well, you're casting tomorrow, so cast with the lines, but
Yes.
keep working on it. That's what one of the things that I do. I typically don't have a finished sigil until my third casting. And sometimes, I'll tell you the truth, I may cast it 5 or 6 times because I cast it, but it broke, or I cast it, but there was astral interference, or I cast it, but I lost focus, or I cast it, but right. All of these things happen. What I say is give it at least 3 tries. And the reason why I say put a day between you and a casting is because there should be time to integrate and observe the results of each casting. And the results aren't always obvious. It's magic. It might be that you happen to see the number 10 like 1,000 times tomorrow. And that's it. You just saw the number 10. Awesome. It's working. It's working you, you're working it. Right? The next time you cast it, it might be something totally different. But the more you journal it, you've captured it. You can go back, and you're gonna go back with the best of Big Chief, and you're gonna like reconsume your own dialogue about what were the results from this casting. What did I get from it? How can I transform and use that to still hit this same intent? You're gonna have 9, 10 more iterations of castings. Not all of them need to be different. They can be different aspects of the same manifestation, just like every project may have a project manager, but the project has discrete deliverables.
So will I be drawing 10 different drawings, or will I just keep?
You will,
Okay.
because you're going to start, this is 10 lines.
Mhm.
The next one will be 9 lines.
And to
The
get that
next
aha
one will
moment.
be 8 lines. You got it. Now you got it. Now you see the arc. And each of those lines, we're going to go from a system of 10 to a system of 9. We're going to go from a system of 9 to a system of 8. So a lot of this kind of spacey, weird, talky part that happens where it's like this external dialogue about magic really is sort of like, it's like that moment where the dies are in the buckets and the shirt's already tied up and you're just dunking it and pulling it out and then dunking the sleeve in the other color and then dunking it in another one, right? To make your tie dye. That's kind of what we're doing with the talk about the tree of life. And it gives you an opportunity to see there's a provenance and context to all of this. And if you hear something or see something that's like, I must know more, that floods my basement, then you can walk away with something in the bibliography and a place to go and start. You have some context and some language, and you can already start unpacking anything you approach. You can go, you after this talk can go and pick up a book on contemporary book on the Kabbalah, read it, and it'll have context and make sense. You'll be like, oh yeah, there's the roads he showed me. Oh yeah, here's a Sephiro. Oh yeah, there's what? There's angels. What? There's demons. What? There's all of these calls and castings and what? There's an entire magical system called the Ordo Templi Orientis, where I get to use this as a way to launch me into godhood. Yep, there sure is. So when you do your 10 lines and then your 9 lines and then your 8 lines, I'm hoping to bring the influence of the flow of each of those systems in to like just touch you. Just go touch Jackie for a minute and she'll get what she gets. And if that's awesome and a lot, it's awesome and a lot. You obviously did. You responded deeply to Netzach and this idea of water and the aqueous nature of the emotionality of the universe, which is beautiful. So thank you for coming to the class.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
I appreciate all your knowledge.
Good. In between now and the next class, please try and take a look at the materials.
Okay.
Your homework for right now is your 3 castings and your journal entries. if you want to be a uber nerd student and over prepared for the next class, then dive into the materials. There are more materials for a system of 9, and take a look at the docs in the folder.
Okay.
Okay.
So let me just make sure I'm correct. So tomorrow night, I do my first casting,
Regardless of
journal
the
it.
state of your sigil, yes, do
Yeah.
your first casting. Yes.
and then do my journal the next day, obviously.
Hmm.
And then the day after that, that's when I do the
Cast.
cast again. And then the next day, that's when I do the journal. Then the next day, that's when I do my casting.
Yes. And
Okay.
then the last day journal,
Last
and
day
there's
journal.
that's right. That's why there's 7 days in between each class, and the class is on the 8th, and it rotates through the week. Because I want you to have enough space to do 3 castings sandwiched by these times for integration observation before you dive into the next one.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And like I said, if you do multiple castings, you did it the first time, but you're not done. Mama's got 2 more. Let's do it. Right? Then do it. Right? That's
Okay.
awesome. Karina, my high priestess, she's awesome. She's a great gal. How did she put it? The more you kiss your God, the more your God kisses you back. Just like any other spouse. So if you can hand her the same memo, honey, 1,000 times, please. I wasn't done. It's the same thing. Yeah, 1,000 more. Yeah, that'd be awesome. I've got one more in me. Here, just 1,000 of those, please. She'll get the message. Okay. All right. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.